Hi, I'm John Filipko, the Chief of Operations for Emmett Ochs Investments. We're a property management company on the west side of Los Angeles, and we own and manage in-house multifamily apartment complexes. I thought it would be a good idea to create a video sharing my 3 best tips for renters in what to look out for and what to be aware of when you're renting an apartment. So let's jump right in with tip number 1. Before I start, I have to say none of this is legal advice. I'm not an attorney. This is just my opinion from my experiences. I say that because the first tip is to be aware that in many leases, you'll come across some kind of terminology that says, you, the renter, are renting this apartment as is. And all that means is you're signing a lease and you're agreeing to take that apartment in the condition that it's in at that time, or likely at the time that you viewed it. Now, this isn't necessarily bad terminology, it's good for both parties. The landlord's saying, hey, I'm showing you what you're getting, this is the condition of the apartment, this is what it is, and you're taking it as such, and the renter's saying, thanks for showing me, I see it, I'm looking around, trying to find stuff. Cool, I like it, I'll take it as is. What to be aware of when this can go a little bit rocky is if you're viewing an apartment, say a manager is showing you a unit, and you're starting to see some things that are problems, maybe the paint's a little faded or something's broken, an appliance is old, whatever it is, if the landlord starts telling you promises of, oh yeah, we're gonna slap a fresh coat of paint there, new appliances are in the works, they're already coming, by the time you move in, all that stuff you mentioned is gonna be A-okay. Now, they might be telling you the truth because as a landlord, sometimes you're showing an apartment and you can show it when it's not quite ready. Maybe they're still working on it, but you want to get eyes on it so that you can rent it right when it's done. You know, cut back on the time that it's on the market. So sometimes it is an incomplete unit and they still have work to do. Other times, if you're dealing with maybe a less than fair or unethical landlord, they could be blowing smoke. They could be telling you all these things, but once you sign the lease and it says as is, if they don't do any of that, if they don't make any of those repairs, you're kind of screwed. Because if there's all these things they promised you and you get in and none of them are taken care of, and you go to a judge or something and you say, hey, they promised me verbally all these things and they didn't do any of it, he'll look at the lease and say, well, looks like you saw the unit, you took it as is, and you might not have much of a case there. So a couple of options or things to consider are, how do you feel about the landlord or the company? Because in all business, there comes a certain amount of trust between the parties. And what's the feeling you get? Do you feel like they're pressuring you, like they have bad intentions? Are they not professional? Or do you feel like they are, promising you stuff that they're going to deliver on? To go further, you can kind of investigate and gather more info. Go online, read their reviews, see what other buildings they manage. You can maybe, flag down a couple tenants and ask them what their experience has been like working with this company. Things like that, just so you feel a little bit more comfortable, or you see some more red flags and you maybe don't want to rent it. And the other option is just to tell the landlord, I like the unit, I want to rent it, but I want those repairs to be made because they're important before I sign it. Because just be honest, you see it's an as-is lease and you want those repairs to be made first. So maybe they'll agree to it, or they might say, we have a lot of people in line, so sorry, we want somebody to sign the lease now. And again, I don't want to be vague, but it comes down to your own kind of gut feelings and your research and how you feel about that company. I just wanted you guys to be aware of the terminology and of some ways you can kind of inform yourself a little better. All right, moving on to tip number 2. Let's say you didn't have any issues like described in tip number 1. You like the landlord, you trust him, and you found your dream unit. You found that top floor, corner unit, perfect light in the area you want, and you fell in love. And you want to secure this unit. So this tip is about how to set yourself above other applicants in order to try and lock in that unit. Because depending on the market, it could be a renter's market or a landlord's market. Maybe there are 5 other renters that fell in love with that same unit. Maybe it's just you, but you never know. Okay, so you found your dream unit and you want to lock it in before this other couple, these other people. What can you do? I'll tell you from the landlord's perspective and how we screen our prospective renters. It's usually a combo of who's applying first and the quality of the applicant. Is their credit astonishing? Is there some issues that kind of worry you? Is their job stable? Have they gotten you all the documents showing, that they have the finances and their credit's good? So there's a few different things that go into qualifying and choosing an applicant. So basically, you're just trying to make it as easy for them as possible. You want to get them all the documents and the information that they're requesting as quickly as you can. And why not go above and beyond and give them a little bit extra so that they know you're serious about it and that you're a qualified candidate. They ask for 2 months of pay statements, give them 4. Bank statements, give them extra. All they're trying to do is to feel comfortable that you're a responsible renter and you're going to pay your rent on time and that they're making a good decision. The same that you're doing when you're kind of vetting out a landlord. So you get them everything that they request as quick as you can. The next thing I would say to do is, if you're very serious about this unit and you really want it, a way to put yourself ahead of potentially other applicants that might be as qualified as you, maybe they applied around the same time, what you can do is say, hey, we're willing to move in as early as needed. So maybe you weren't expecting to move in for a couple of weeks or a month, but a landlord wants their unit filled. They want to be getting paid rent as soon as possible. Every day that it sits vacant is a day of rent that they don't get. So if it's very competitive and there's a lot of applications in, they of course are going to really like someone that says, hey, I know what I said I'd move in on the 20th. I'll move in tomorrow or the next day. Basically, I'm telling you I'll move in as soon as you want. That's going to put you definitely above other apps that are standing strong on their move-in date. They could be just as qualified, but they say, no, my moving truck is booked in 20 days. That's the day I'm going to move in. Well, you might have just secured the apartment because you're flexible. You're willing to pay, I guess, a little bit of double rent. You might still have your other unit. And if you really, really want a unit, that might be the way to secure it. All right, we made it to the third and final tip. Let's say you found an apartment that you're interested in, but you want to be cautious and you want to check a few more boxes. Let's say you're sensitive to noise and you just want to make sure that it's not a really noisy building. Now you can ask the landlord, are their dogs barking? Is it noisy? They might not live on site, so you kind of have to take what they say with a grain of salt. They also, if they're unethical, might lie and say, oh, it's so quiet, you're going to get all the rest you need, and they're just blowing smoke. What I would recommend, to be pragmatic, is kind of hang out around the building at different times. So you might be seeing it in the afternoon on a weekday when everything's quiet. Maybe check it out in the morning when everyone's going to work, or at like 6:30 in the evening when people are all home. Or if you see it on a weekday, check it out on a weekend when people get a little bit more lively. It depends on how sensitive you are to the environment, but it's a good way to weed something out and not get into a situation where you move in somewhere and your neighbor has a yappy dog and it really bugs you Maybe if you went back to visit the building, you would have seen that or heard it, and you might maybe dodge a little bit of a bullet and a little bit of a headache. All right, that's it. Those are my 3 tips for renters. Hopefully they weren't too obvious. Hopefully somebody gets some use out of one or the other. Then thanks for watching. If you're searching for an apartment on the west side of Los Angeles, feel free to reach out to Emmett Ochs. We might have apartments available for you to rent. Just go to www.emmettochs.com for all of our information. And thanks again, and good luck on your search.